welcome everybody to the final segment of the day. And me and Andrew had a conversation this morning about kind of this conversation and what we were going to talk about. And I've been quite excited about it all day.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you've not been excited about it all day, have you not?
I'm terrified, yeah.
No, well, I think it's going to be fabulous. And actually, we have this table, which you'll have to imagine is a fire, because I always think there's something quite literal about that. But I think in the sense of this conversation and the conversation we're going to have today, it's labelled inside the mind of a CIO. And I think that from what you've told me of your journey to being a CIO and your thoughts on that, I think that it'd be really good to kind of hear about that in this conversation. But I think as well as that, there's something really nice about this conversation just being a chat. You know, so I do have like some key themes and questions, but I think, you know, just a conversation. I think it's mostly just about kind of hearing your journey and your thoughts on kind of, you know, what it is like at the moment and how you got here. So do you want to kind of do a bit of, like a bit of Scylla, like what's your name and where'd you come from?
If I have to, yeah. So I'm Andrew Daniels, so I'm the Group CIO of Betfred. Betfred is one of the largest independent bookmakers in the world. We have 1,300 shops in the UK. We have a large online business in Gibraltar. We also have operations in South Africa and the US. It's quite interesting job title, subject title, inside the mind of a group CIO. Because I probably wouldn't think of myself as a CIO. I've not been a CIO that long. I never thought I would be a CIO. I spent most of my career in product development. I started building websites when I was still at school and started working as a developer in 2000. So I went through the dot-com bubble or the end of it. I then became working for a startup that was trying to be the first company in the world to do mobile gambling, and I was the developer, and we were the second company in the world to do it by about 6 weeks, and it wasn't because I delivered anything late, I can assure you. It meant that I got into mobile development really early on, and then when mobile finally took off, I was in a privileged position, and I actually and long after that, I set up a digital mobile development agency and did that for various different companies. And because of my experience in gambling, it turned out that most of the work we did was in the global gambling space. We then we decided we were going to build a platform because there was a big lack of that within the industry. Complete naivety, thought I could build a platform, and I thought it would take me about 2 years, 2.5 years, cost about 16 million, and that was the investment I got. By the time it was finished, Betfred had acquired me, but it cost 102 million and took 7 years, so I was well off the mark. And then finally, after delivering the platform, I became Group CIO of Betfred. So I didn't actually think of myself as somebody who would be in this position. I thought of myself that I was a small business owner, or like running small businesses. So it's a bit of a change.
And I think I haven't heard the kind of story that you've just told. From many CIOs. I think, you know, it's interesting that you said you don't really kind of identify quite maybe yet as a CIO, but I suppose, do you think that you're that kind of non-standard journey through and the kind of entrepreneurship and the, you know, understanding, you know, that you've come from that knowledge of that pure tech background and then, you know, product and moving through, do you think that's changed how, I suppose, you exist within that leadership space now?
Yeah, I think what I've not really got a frame on is what a good CIO looks like, because I've never worked for a CIO, and you know, I've come into this conference to meet other CIOs because I really want to learn what it's about, and you know, I'm a CIO now and I want to be a really good CIO, but it's a journey, right? So But yeah, I think when I've spoken to some other people in the space, they're saying, well, you know, we've got to be, how do we ensure that we're aligned with the business? Well, I knew more about the business than I knew about the IT to begin with. So that's much easier for me. And I am thinking about how things work commercially and what we're delivering and what the end value of that is. And we don't tend to just do things for the sake of technology, because it's always why. So I think there's some definite benefits to come at it the way I have. I'm sure there's some shortcomings as well. But you know, I think everyone's journey is probably different for them. So yeah, I do think that having a product mindset, particularly in an organisation that we're, you know, in Betfred, we're trying to shift our operating model. Now we've got our own technology stack, moving away from managing vendors, letting vendors dictate what our product roadmap looks like, to being a product-led organisation and shifting our operating model. And I think that's, as part of that, as a CIO, I've probably lost quite a lot of control because the CPOs come in and they're dictating what we're doing in that space. But that's kind of, and I wouldn't mind doing that job actually. You know what? So I don't have to get called out every Saturday when the sites, when we've got issues and when the football's about to start. I can just say what we want. It sounds really good. But yeah, I obviously made the wrong decision when deciding what I wanted to do. But yeah, I think moving to this operating model, I think having that commercial viewpoint on things definitely is helpful.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I heard a couple of people laugh when you gave that example there. So I think a couple of people are also of the view that, yeah, it's nice to have that separation. The bit around, you kind of talked it through in your intro, and you sped past the point that I think I just want to bring you back to, which was you described kind of, you know, you were running your own business to create the new platform. And that bit around, and I think I asked you this earlier this morning, just take us through the steps, because I think it's interesting for people to hear about how you went from there to the platform itself and what that was about, and then how that then became, you popped up as a CIO right here today on stage.
Yeah, okay. So having an agency is a people business, and like, you know, we've all got people, we're all people, right? So we're all nightmares, aren't we? So having a people business where you're selling time of those people is a nightmare. You've got your own consultancy, right? So, you know, my bright spark is let's do a product business, because it's much more scalable and I could do with less people, make more money. But obviously got it completely wrong and thought, oh, it's actually going to take 2 years and I'll get you this investment and I could sell it all over the world and all this sort of stuff. And it was like, I thought it was going to take, I think in my first business, Degree 53, we used to work with a lot of big platform businesses in our industry. And we used to do we used to deliver like a lot of front end development, a lot of UX, middleware, and they loved us because we'd be really quick and they'd be really slow. So we were working on like a project with the French National Lottery that was supplying to the Ottawa national state lottery in Canada, and like the timeline was like 3.5 years to deliver it, and like our bit was going to take like 6 months, and I was like, this is an amazing deal. Like, why is it going to take them so long? So I thought I could do this better than they could, and I was wrong about that. Because I think it's there's so much. You know, when you're running a small business, you know everything about that business, and then you get into enterprise, and actually there's no person who knows everything about it. So it's just trying to work out how do you deliver a platform that's going to cater for this whole thing. You completely underestimate, and also if you start off a project thinking it's going to take 2 years, and it takes 7, you don't think, oh, it's taking me 2 years, it's now 7 years. You think it's going to be another 6 months or another year. So you make decisions based on those time horizons, and you make the wrong decision a lot of time because you do that. So it probably would have taken 6 or 7 years to do it if I'd known it from there. And it might have cost us a bit of it might have cost us less money, maybe not a lot less. But, I probably wouldn't have had 2 nervous breakdowns during that process. So it would have been better for me, I think.
Yeah, and I'm taking that point about the nervous breakdowns as very literal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. After having about COVID 5 times and being, literally having a nervous breakdown and still trying to get things done, because if it's your baby, you've got to do it, right? I decided that I needed to do something else, so I started fishing. So that was interesting. But I think as part of the journey along the way, one of the main investor in the business was Fred Doan, who owns Betfred. And when he saw that we needed more money and how complicated it was going to be to deliver it, he said, "Well, I'm going to buy the business. I'm going to fund it. I want you to help to deliver it, but we're not going to sell it to anyone else because I want this for Betfred, because the value in what we're going to do is going to be worth a lot more to me driving my business with my name, in the title than it would be to go and sell this to other people." So I bought into that vision, and we finally delivered the platform last year. And at that point, I decided to stay on with it and run the global technology operations.
And now that bit around you're overseeing the platform that you know really well, and that's now moved into Betfred, but then the bit around kind of legacy systems piece. So you've also got oversight of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the platform that we delivered initially took on the UK online business, and we've then built betting terminals that have been rolled out into the retail estate in the UK. We've also begun work on bringing our international jurisdictions onto the platform, but each country's got their own regulation and requirements, so it's not just a switch on a new website basically. So we're working on all that. But then if I take our retail estate and our retail estate is twice the size in terms of revenue as our online business. So where people think, well, who still goes in betting shops anymore? Lots of people, different demographics of people for sure, but it's still, Betfred's a 58-year-old business, and last year was our best year in retail we've ever had, and I don't think many other retailers could say that. At our peak we had 1,700 shops, we've got 1,300 shops now, but we still had our best year. Now obviously that shows that the market is contracting, but Betfred's growing. And as part in retail, our over-the-counter business is a completely proprietary platform built by a vendor. There is only one other vendor in the UK that offers something comparable, but it's an older platform that people don't want. There's not new betting shops opening up, so no one's building that. So we've got to manage a 25-year-old platform with a vendor that we need to keep them engaged and delivering for us, but also delivering new features and experiences to our customers, because we know that the demographic of our customers that go into betting shops is changing, and we want to be around on the high street for a lot longer than the next few years, but we need to adapt, and hopefully the government doesn't price us off there.
I mean, it's interesting about that bit around kind of the kind of human experience that actually people are going into betting shops, and actually that's a big part of your business, but also recognizing that the technology that comes in, for instance with the platform, this is where it kind of ties you to vendors that actually probably aren't as ahead, but actually there's that ongoing commitment to kind of sustaining that kind of more kind of legacy technology, and actually that aligns entirely with the kind of organization's direction when it comes to serving to the types of customers you've got. Does that mean that actually there's a kind of time span on that, in the sense of what that offering will be? Does the technology
But it is a real risk, it's on our risk register. Does what happens with this supplier that's providing this technology? Because a couple of years ago they were bought by a $12 billion company, and this is quite a small part of their business. Do they continue to invest in that? And what happens if they go away? Now, do we start building our own platform for retail, even though it's a dwindling market, and we know it's a huge undertaking to do that? No, and actually if we build it for the UK, it's not going to be somewhere we can put anywhere else in the world, because the UK is very specific. People go on, write on bits of paper, hand it over at the counter. That doesn't exist really anywhere else in the world, so it's not like we can go out and sell it anywhere or put it in any other jurisdictions. So what we are doing is we're investing in terminals, because that's, if you look at like McDonald's is the obvious one, where before you stood in the queue at the counter and you did that, and then one terminal turned up. Now you can't really stand at a counter, so people are doing that, and we're building terminal software which is offering a different experience, and that does allow us to digitalise the shop experience more than it currently was, which was very paper based.
So it's interesting. So actually in building the digital into the kind of in-person experience, actually what you remove is the kind of the dependency on the vendor, but actually you're also able to deliver to actually what your current customers' needs are.
Yeah, and I think like our shop customers are different to our online customers in a lot of respects in terms of demographics, but also people go into betting shops for different reasons. Sometimes it's part of the community, sometimes it's because they want to do it anonymously and they don't want the other half seeing the bank statements. So people want to be anonymous in betting shops, so we can't basically then create like online accounts for these people in betting shops. Also as well, the retail estate is a different business to it's the same brand, but our online business is based in Gibraltar. It's working under a different regulatory framework than our retail business. And we need to be mindful of that, absolutely. But our customers don't care about that, because there is, we also want to make sure that everybody who goes into a Betfred shop also bets on the Betfred app if they are a digital customer as well. How do we join that up when we've got these challenges about data sovereignty and regulation and stuff like that? So we're looking at how do we solve them.
And the bit around the kind of risk and the kind of regulatory stuff, I was just thinking about kind of what is that way in which, and I don't know, maybe it's in your mind, because we're in your mind, that you kind of balance off that, I suppose, that kind of, you've been in careers and roles where you've had real kind of, and I say freedom of innovation to really create. And then now you're in a role where actually there's kind of, risk balances from the perspective of, almost kind of holding back innovation. And tell me if I'm completely wrong and that's not kind of the current stance, but what's...
I think trying to do it when you're in a startup, innovation's easy because you're probably innovating because you're a startup, right? And as you become a bigger organisation, it becomes harder to innovate, like at a big level, I would say. But where you are doing innovation, I don't see there really is a trade-off. You've got to get the guardrails right from day one. You've only got to look at what's going on at the moment with Marks and Spencer to say, well, actually, let's not make any mistakes here. But as long as you've built those guardrails in, and you build, if your developers are using, pipelines, making sure that security is baked into it. I mean, DevSecOps as a function that everyone's thinking about, making sure that the right secure coding standards are being followed. We have to do that from a regulatory perspective. So again, it's not like, for us, we're not having to think, how do we make this secure or bolting it on afterwards. We just have to do it. And so therefore, it isn't a trade-off between innovation and security. We have to do both.
Absolutely. And I think, to some of that point around kind of, I suppose, the conversations that you've heard today and the conversations particularly, I'm just thinking about kind of cyber, is there anything kind of today that kind of really rang true in these discussions where you thought that's given me something different to think about, that's kind of told me that I need to kind of, think about that within my kind of role and within?
there's been a lot of interesting things. I think my worry as someone who's taken on cybersecurity, and it's not something I've got a background in. Now at Betfred, InfoSec used to be a compliance function, and we were compliant in everything we did. And I think there was a lot of naivety to think just because you're compliant means that you're secure, and actually that isn't. There's no truth in that whatsoever. So actually, we spent a lot of money buying stuff from vendors and said, you need this, so we'll buy it. And then there's this kind of like false security that because we've got this particular product, we're secure. Where actually, if we've not configured it correctly, we're no more secure by having it. In fact, we're less secure because we think we've got the illusion of security. So we're about lots of different things, and I'm sure we're all we've got a finite amount of money we can spend on security, and we've got to make a decision about where do we invest our budgets, but also our people's time in rolling those systems out and configuring them. And that's, for me, people have asked me today, what do you see as your biggest challenge? That's my biggest challenge, because there's so many issues. And, like last night I'm thinking, like, what's going on at Marks and Spencer's, and how do I make sure that that's not going to happen to Betfred? And obviously they're not really giving much information out yet. But that's really going to have to be, I do think this is like a pivotal moment where hopefully in the next couple of weeks things are going to come out about what's happened. And, that's really going to be, I think, directing a lot of people's conversation, at board level, because, I'm getting a phone call from Fred this morning saying, is that going to happen to us? And I'm like, I don't know what's happened, so I can't tell you one way or the other. But what I do know about security is it's a vast field. You can never be ahead of the game on it, and you really placing bets on what you think the best use of your resources are. And I think that's what I struggle in my position to make sure that I'm making the right decision on.
I got stuck when what you were saying there, because you mentioned betting, and I was like, this is all too much betting.
Yeah, it's like inception.
Yeah. I feel like in this conversation I've learned such a huge amount about not only the kind of sector and industry, but also it's been really interesting to hear, I suppose, your kind of openness to just kind of sharing your journey. And I think it's felt very human to me in the sense of, what you've put across. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure, we are not authorised to take questions. I'm told that we've got to round up, but I did just really want to say thank you, Andrew, and thank you for coming to talk to us all. And
no problem.
I think it's probably really added to.
Thanks for listening.
Today.
I know everyone was hoping to get an early dart out of Manchester City Centre, so thanks for staying.
Just to be clear, there's prizes after this.
Oh yeah,
so yeah.
Everyone's just staying for the prizes, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted you to know that they're not trying to rush off to drinks. They might be a winner.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much. And can we give a round of applause?